Welcome back to Your Average Witch, where every Tuesday we talk about witch life, witch stories, and sometimes a little witchcraft. Your Average Witch is brought to you by Crepuscular Conjuration. In this episode, I'm talking to Marcella Kroll, an artist, author, and creator of the Dreamer's Tarot and Nature Nurture Oracle decks. We talked about ancestor work, divination, and how imposter syndrome can affect your practice. Before we get started, though, I wanted to invite you to the Witch's Bazaar by Inked Goddess Creations. It's on October 12th from noon to 6 at 1674 South Research Loop, Suite 430 here in Tucson. I'll be vending, and I'll have altar cloths, altar dish sets, shirts, jewelry, and a bunch of other witchy stuff. And you can learn more by going to witchesbazaar.com. That's WITCHES-BAZAAR.com. Now let's get to the stories. Good morning, Marcella. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Happy to be here.
Oh, good. I'm really happy to have you. Can you please introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what you do and where they can find you?
Sure. My name is Marcella Kroll. I am a spiritual counselor, tarot reader, divination deck creator and teacher, and I am based in Tucson, Arizona at this time. You can find all of my information at marcellakroll.com, or my Instagram is at Marcella Kroll. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you call yourself a witch first?
You know, I have mixed feelings about that. I called myself a witch for a really long time, and then I kind of veered away from that title because I felt like there was a lot of just kind of judgment in being called that, or a lot of it felt trendy. It started to become popular, and it was one of those things. I even dressed I used to dress like really kind of more witchy, I guess, looking. And then, just the rise. I lived in LA for 18 years. So, Hollywood witches and things like that. And, it just got a little too I didn't want to be part of it. But am I a witch? I mean, yeah, deep down, I guess I could say I am.
What does it mean when you say that? What does the term mean to you?
For me, I think being a witch, being a magical person, or being living here requires a devotion to the divine, to the invisible, to the impossible. I think it's about being an advocate, or, someone that stands up for others, and including non-living things. So I think that's what kind of I want to remind people, that like being a witch and being a spiritualist is not about cosplaying. Like, there's a responsibility to be had as a person who embodies this archetype. You have a responsibility, and to engage with the invisible, but also to do so in a manner with reverence and with respect for all living things.
I love that.
Thanks.
Would you say you have any family history with witchcraft, or even if they wouldn't have called themselves witches, it's still kind of witchy?
Yeah. Well, it's really wild. I have quite an interesting background, because I grew up with a very Catholic Italian grandmother. But her sister, my great aunt, there was really she did the Malocchia, which is like the Italian, evil eye, clearing that and all that. And there was a lot of folk magic. But they didn't really talk about it. Right. So in my own research, I found that there was a lot of, we're descendants of like Janare, like in witches, which is like a Southern Italian folk magic. And then my biological father's side, which I didn't have any connection to. I didn't know my biological father until 5 years ago. So when I met him, he said, "Oh, I see you took that gift of ours and turned it into a living." And that's when I found out that his mother, my grandmother, who's still alive, and I've spoken to her, she is a tarot reader at Woodstock. And her mother was, a magical person, but also a medium. And she was institutionalized for seeing things, amongst also being like in an interracial marriage in the 30s or relationship, because it wasn't legal. Because my father's side is, they're Wampanoag, Native American, and Filipino, and African American. Yeah. So there's like this mixture of different magical practices and folk histories. So without knowing certain things I was tapping into, and like in doing certain things like unprompted, because I had no teachings, finding out later that it was in fact, kind of passed down. So that's, I guess you would say kind of my like ancestral connections to magic.
That's really interesting.
It's pretty wild when you meet people that, and I was like, well, wow, this just like unpacked a whole lot of mystery, but also gave me like, oh, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
Like, because for years I thought I was schizophrenic, or I thought I was crazy, or, because I wasn't like my mom's family at all, and no one could give me any answers, because you try to talk about things and everything's a big secret. And the Italians were so, into the Catholicism and wanted to be American so bad. So there was a lot of erasure, except for like my great aunt, like I said. And then I found out also, after doing my own research, what's even more wild is the town where my grandmother was born and her family is from, in southern Italy, in Ravascanina, is like 45 minutes from Witches of Benevento, which is like was a huge meeting. Witches of Benevento, if you look that up, it's like a huge meeting spot for witches. And there was originally, I think like there's a church there now, but there was a Hecate temple there. Yeah. And there was a cult of Isis temple, which like predates all of that. And I also, doing that research, found out that through the Italian side, which I think is hilarious, there's also, I have North African and Coptic Egyptian, but it's like way back. It's like 7-8 generations back, but it all goes through that matrilineal line, so yeah, I'm just like, okay. And Isis is the first deity that I ever connected with unprompted. So I think it finds you when you are connected, when it's in your blood like that.
That is cool and interesting. Holy crap. That's neat.
Thanks. Yeah. It's pretty wild. I mean, it definitely was like, ooh, aha, a lot of aha moments, especially when you think like, and you have people are just like, oh, you're imagining things, or, but to have it kind of validated as an adult. Yes. I'm like, well, I'm glad it was validated in my lifetime.
I know. I would love that. I would love to have somebody say, oh, this is why.
I think honestly, though, I mean, it wouldn't have happened. I did a lot of work, I think, to open those channels. I was doing a lot of ancestral veneration in attempts to search for my bio dad and information. And I think me doing that veneration is literally like what opened those channels.
That's cool. Stuff is just weird when it does that.
I mean, it really is. It's always, what I love about magic is that it's, even though it's like, I'm surprised, but I'm never like, oh yeah, totally knew that was going to happen. Like, I love that I still can have like, excitement that like, oh my gosh, that worked, like there's still this feeling of, it's not naivety, but it's innocence again. Like when I have things happen in magic, that I'm just so glad that I'm not, yes, I'm jaded about a lot of things in my life, but like when things happen magically, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and I feel like
wonder.
a kid again. Yeah. Like I feel like excited again about existing, because I don't feel excited about existing a lot, not to be too heavy, but like the reality is it's magic is what keeps me like excited to be here as a human on this earth planet, whatever.
In this year.
In this economy.
No, that's I laugh, but damn it.
You got to laugh. I mean, you have to, you gotta. Oh, anywho. What else you got for me, Kim? What else? We can take it really dark. I mean, or we can go to aliens, whatever. Okay. Oh, sorry. That's like my specialty.
If I do cry, I want it to be over something like good and not desperation. Tears.
Okay. I'm sorry. I like to bring out the tears in people.
Oh, I'm a crier. I'm sure it'll happen.
Okay, cool. I can handle it.
Can you introduce us to your practice? Do you have any consistent, maybe even daily things that you do?
Well, I have to say I'm a bad witch in that I don't have like something that I say I do forever and ever. I have periods of time, like seasons of ways I practice. I have multiple altars in my home. I work with multiple deities and beings. But I also think that my practice is intending to those altars at different times. I do like to make it a practice to introduce myself to land and to spaces that I have not been to. I think whether I'm traveling in or around town or even out of the country, I think that is an important practice. And being a good steward of witchcraft and of the land is introducing yourself to the places and spaces you go to, not just the humans, but, the land, the trees, the people who came before you. So I would say that's a big part of my practice. I do a lot of, I would say, fire magic, candle magic, and not just like to get things, but more like veneration. And a lot of purging and a lot of clearing. And sometimes what I've become kind of more consistent with is periodically doing like group burn rituals for prayers for people. I don't do it all the time, but I try to do it, especially when the world is going through a lot of things. And
so you just had a constant pyre in your yard for the
no, there's no constant pyre, but like I will periodically put out like a call, for people to, put their kind of like intentions or, people that they're praying for and do that. I just did a equinox ritual up in Phoenix and had everyone kind of like contribute their intentions for themselves with their intentions for the world and saying a prayer for someone else, because it is in that giving and receiving that we find balance. And I think that is a huge part of my practice, on top of teaching, so I'm always learning myself, but I do like to teach other people how. I think part of my personal practice is teaching other people how to find the magic within themselves, and how to use it, but make it unique. Because I think, like, as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of witchcraft out there. There's a lot of handy dandy, like, tools and classes and things and, consumption. But a lot of it is like, do this my way. And I'm like, how about you do it your own way? But I'll just show you how to find it.
Exactly.
And I think that's just also a product of, I grew up in the 80s and 90s and I didn't have anyone to look at. There was no internet. There was just like a couple of dusty New England bookstores because I grew up in Rhode Island. And, it's like very spooky out there, but like even as spooky as it is, it's still witch burning country. Like people didn't talk about this stuff. So you had to like, I had to teach myself a lot of things because I didn't have direct mentors, So anyway, I like this idea that the world is more open or opening up to this way, but I also think it's important to find your own, voice in it. So that's what I like to share in my practice and in any kind of mentorship I do, or even like I show people like, yes, there's a time and a place for like very traditional, like step-by-step rituals and things like that. But also when you've been homeless, like I've been houseless before, I've done rituals on a napkin, or I was living out of my car, like at one point, like there, and I would do little things on my dashboard because that was all I had. And I want people to know that like rituals and practice more, it is a lot of it. Like that stuff is beautiful. And don't get me wrong. I love a good candle holder, an aesthetic. Yeah. I love I love my little doodads and everything, but you also have to make sure your intent is there. Otherwise these are empty objects. These are empty things. So.
I agree. I actually taught a class that is sort of like that.
Nice.
I don't know. It was at Anahata's Purpose. I thought it feels like it was last year, but I think it was only like 2 weeks ago. But anyway, it was along those same lines. So I relate to that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's important. So I guess like here's the thing, like I have a book coming out in February kind of based on, because there's a couple of schools of thought and I understand it, right? Like there are a lot of people out there who are like, super strict in their practices. And they're like, if you don't have elders, if you don't have mentors, like it's not legit, right? And you shouldn't be working with other people. But there are people who are out there that didn't have that because those histories were erased, suppressed, or stolen. Or people who, like myself, I'm mixed, I'm multiracial. I don't have access to a lot of those worlds because I wasn't welcome. Like it was like kind of like, this is a little sus. Why are you here? Are you trying to be extractive? Are you trying to do this? And it's like, so a lot of the work that I like to do, it's like Island of Misfit Toys magic. And that is the purpose of this healing the liminal stuff, is because we are residing in a liminal space. There's no space for us. So how do we do this work and honor and respect these traditions, but also create and empower ourselves by creating our own that still also don't deny like our lineages and our history, but they also don't try to just like copy and paste something that doesn't fully resonate with them. Because I was never white enough for the white witchcraft pagan spaces. I was always a little off for people. And then for the more like, even in my own indigenous like communities or even like other spaces, like I was too white for them, So it's like, they're like, what are you doing here? What do you want? So a lot of imposter syndrome and all of those things can come up, especially when people are like, well, you don't have anyone that's showed you their lineage, their practice. But I think we're living in a world now, and it's the same reason why like I started making decks, was because I didn't find anything that I connected to, like just like we have to grow and evolve as humans, like so do our tools, so do our practices. All of that stuff, traditional Hermeticism, all that stuff, like I appreciate the hell out of it. I do. I've taught at a Hermetic school in LA before. Like that's one of the places we went to Egypt. We did initiations of the Sphinx, but it's not, I don't practice Hermeticism, but I respect it, and I've learned it in ways, but it is not my daily practice. I don't know. I like to say I have a multi-pass, But it takes a lot to have a multipass. Like you have to really, really do a lot of shadow work, I think. And I'm always doing it. You have to be brutally honest with yourself and your reasons why. And you have to be very, very, very quick to call yourself out and not get absorbed or lost in the sauce of someone else's practice. You know, staying in your own lane, but also having reverence, right?
One thing that I thought when you were talking about your family is that it's interesting that lots of cultures try to cover up that stuff, and then there's people like me who have very distant ancestors who are from that region or whatever, and we're trying to find it again. And so we're looking for it, and it's just an interesting dichotomy of people.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I think there is like beauty in the reclamation, and reclaiming and going back to those roots, going back to, like deep, deep rooted stuff. That's where you find the healing. But, there's a lot of other stuff that comes up with it. And I think that that's what people have to understand. Like, I don't know, like I worked in LA for so long. I worked at a metaphysical bookstore out there in Venice and for 10 years. And there's a lot of seeking, right? But in that seeking, you don't just get like a merit badge and a Band-Aid. Like you've got to, and this is where a lot of people have a hard time, or where they quit or they give up, or they go to one religion and go, this is all going to send you to hell, is because they can't look at the ugly stuff and sit in it, because I have the like both sides of the coin there, in the oppressed and the oppressor and like all that stuff, and like to reconcile a lot of those things in my magical practice. But also, I have to exist, and I have to exist for them. I have to exist for the ones that had to, and even like my Italian side, like a lot of them gave up a lot of their magic to fit in, to get by. It's not that they're less magical than my indigenous or my Filipino or my, African sides. Like they're just, they had to do it differently.
Well, if it's a choice between cover it up or be killed, I'm probably going to cover it up.
Yeah, cover it up or go, like survival, or who gets, even if you go back, like not that far back, like I think about, relatives that had to just, okay, well, enough with this is, this arts and dancing. Like there were a lot of dancers in my mom's, the Italian side. There were a lot of dancers, but that was considered a hobby, but like they used to win like little like competitions and things like that. And like that with the encouragement or with actual support, maybe that could have been, encouraged,
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome. I think that even too with magic and witchcraft, I think people think they're supposed to be good at it overnight, or they're supposed to be good at it right away. Do you know how many mistakes I made as like a baby witch? I've made in so many dumb things that like, I can laugh about it now, but like, and now we have people like grown adults who are like suddenly discovering their magic, which is beautiful, but like not expecting to make a mistake or to do something and like kind of have a hiccup. Like, I don't know.
I must not really be this because it's not in my blood, so I must not be able to do it right. So
right, or it's evil,
this isn't me.
Yeah, or like, oh, this was bad. I'm like, no, it's just like, this is why it's a practice. You also have to develop, discipline, which is hard. I have a hard time with discipline,
Me too. That's why I'm not in the army anymore. But also don't tell me what to do.
I'm the same way. I'm like, you're not the boss of me. But wait, tell me, what do I need to do? And I'm like,
Give me the exact way it needs to be done, but then
well, I
leave
just
me
say
alone while I do it.
are you autistic? Because I'm autistic, and that sounds very
Yep.
autistic. Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. Neurodivergence unites.
How would you say your magical practice has changed your life? Or would you?
Oh my God. It's the only reason why I'm alive. Honestly. I mean, I'm not just saying that to be like, oh, this is it is. It's the only, I would say magic and art are my reasons for breathing, for being here. They're the things that have kept me going. They're the only things that haven't let me down. Honestly. And it's like everything in this world will let you down. And even when magic has not given me what I wanted, it has not let me down because it was like, no, you don't want that. This is not what you want. Like, I was like, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for showing me. Thank you for like letting me mess up enough to understand that what I'm seeking is actually something else. So, as far as it throughout my life, magic, I mean, even when I was a little girl, I used to like make potions on the floor, like with random things, like
in the bathroom.
Yeah, or just like I would grab, like my mom had, I have a pretty young mom, and it was a party house, when I wasn't with my grandmother and I was with my mom, because my mom used to like follow bands and stuff. All her friends were all really young. And they were like into rock and roll, or like she had a couple of her friends, we called, everyone was like auntie, nobody was related, but they'd give me all these like little perfume things and dolls, and I'd make little witch spells. Like I would even go into the kitchen and like just like take pancake mix and like make spells on the floor and get in a lot of trouble. Because I wasn't like in a bowl or anything. I was just like pouring shit on the floor, but random things like that. But
yeah,
it's always been present. The only time I like doled it down, honestly, was because kids start to make fun of you, or I tried really hard to be normal for a little while. That's the funny thing, is like most people try to be like weird and extroverted, or weird and like really out there. I tried to be really normal for a few years as a teenager, and it always backfired.
Were you miserable?
Right?
I was.
I was definitely trying to like unsubscribe from reality a lot. And I developed a, drug and alcohol abuse problem, but that was from, I would say 14 to 18. And then I did actually have a near-death experience because I overdosed at 18. And that's when it all came flooding back into my life. That's when all the senses, like all the lights went on again. I went to treatment, went to rehab, and I actually like started learning how to do astrological charts, like, but by hand, just because I was bored.
Holy moly.
I wasn't, yeah. And like
you were doing math. Oh no.
Reading cards. Well, to me, it was like, it wasn't altruistic, because some people are always like, oh my God, I want to help people. I was like, no, I just want to know why I'm like this. Like, I wasn't interested in helping people. That didn't come until later,
Well, it's hard to help other people. It's like the airplane mask situation. You got to do yourself first.
I had no plans of living beyond 18. So everything was just like, meh, all right, I'll try it, So that was, yeah. I would say magic has always been a huge presence in my life.
What would you say is the biggest struggle in your practice?
Patience. I mean, that's definitely, patience is a huge one, because sometimes it's really hard to see the bigger picture. And sometimes like wanting the solution right away. And just like, as I mentioned, discipline, consistency. So, but I have mixed feelings about that, right? Like I get on myself about discipline, but then I get on myself because I'm like, why are you being like using your internalized ableism on yourself about things that are cyclical in nature? And, you're not a machine. So why would magic be a machine?
That's wild to think about having that conversation with myself. That would make my head hurt.
It hurts. I mean, I literally been having this conversation like recently, even like the last couple of days, because it's like, how do you trust that the seeds you're planted and like you're watering and stuff are like, and then you're like, grow, happen, manifest. And it's like, no, like if you do this now, it's not going to benefit you. And those are those are my younger self mistakes. Why do I need to repeat them?
The Lord.
The Lord has nothing to do with this, Kim. I'm sorry, I'm a ball buster.
Here for it.
Okay, cool.
So you've brought up imposter syndrome a couple times. How do you deal with it?
The hard way.
Is it you just slog through? Because that's what I do.
I mean, I have to like really, I have to have a little bit of a tantrum first, and a pity party, and then a full mental breakdown, and then I like pull myself together, and I'm like, okay. And sometimes it's not even like, it's like one shift in perspective. It's one conversation, or it's one like acknowledgement of, doing a little like reflection and review. Like, well, what if, because the thing is, I find that like we often don't, even like moving here, right? I moved here just over 6 months ago. Like it's been like, it'll be almost 7 months soon. And I'm like, I've nothing. And then I had to literally sit and go, wait, what have you done in the last, like even like the fact that like I went full time in 2009, and I was trying to think, and I was like, why am I being so like awful to myself when if I can sit down and bullet point like the things that I've been able to kind of do, not just to achieve, but like, and not just for money, but like for my well-being, for my growth, for my own healing, like sit with all of that. Can you like let go of like thinking you're not doing it right, or you're not enough, or you're not worth it? And I will say it's still hard. I can still, if you put all of the things that I've created in front of me, it's a very surreal thing. And I can, and I still have like a fear, almost like, I think it's more of like a fear of appreciate. If I'm being honest, it's just like a fear of like, if I appreciate this now, does that mean I'm done? Does that mean I'm done in this timeline fully? Like, am I really putting a cap on it at this? Because it's not everything I've wanted to do. But also, I think that's the product of, not growing up with supportive guardians, so, I mean, I go to therapy and I've had to make a lot of changes in, especially the last few years, with who I surround myself with, how I talk to myself. These are not easy things to deprogram, especially when you seek out, like when you're pretty wounded and you seek out relationships that validate your imposter syndrome, then you have to like deconstruct all that and get new friends. That's a painful process.
That's hard.
Yes, it's beyond hard. The last 3 years for me. So it's like, I was in Echo Park in LA, and then I moved to Long Beach, and it's like, and I was in Long Beach for 3 years. And I feel like that whole 3 years was one of the most painfully isolating kind of periods of my life, because I was literally being like, I wished for this. I didn't want to be suffering in this imposter syndrome anymore. I didn't want to be in empty, one-sided connections that constantly fulfilled this, like, you're not good enough thing. Because that may have fueled me for a while. It may have fueled me to produce more work, to do more. But when do you start, like, actually enjoying living? And when do you start allowing yourself to appreciate the things that you did, that you're not in, like, you didn't do those, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. All I know is, like, I achieved those. Like, can I just acknowledge that that did happen? Like, you did do that. So yeah, it's been an interesting few years, and then, painful, but, like, less depressive coming out of it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, especially when you're, like, a sad kid your whole life. Like, I was joking, I'm born sad. I have sad girl tattooed on my thigh. Like, it's like, and it's not to say that I'm not sad anymore about life or about things, but, like, to be perpetually sad because you just feel like you don't really have any reason for being here, but magic's still holding me through it all. It's like, there's something, and maybe it's less self-pity or something. I don't know. Now I'm yammering off on a tangent that I have no idea where this is going. So what's next?
I like that, though, but that phrase that magic's holding you, I really like that.
Oh, always. I feel like it's been holding me since the, like, inception, unwillingly. Like, I didn't want to come in, but I did, everybody's like, oh, your soul chooses to be here. I was like, my soul was like, no, I don't want to be here. Like, I was trying to get out, and then they're like, no, you're not done yet. You're going right back.
Damn it.
I know. Because I tried again, like, I tried to get out again at 18, and I got pushed back in my body. Like, no, you're not. So
you gotta finish your peas.
Yeah.
What brings you the most joy in your practice? Let's turn it around a little bit.
The most joy
Yes.
in my practice. I love that. Oh gosh. And I don't know if this is necessarily just, like, my practice or just living. Like, I love the freedom that I can feel in my practice. Like, there's freedom in it. And that's like the thing that all that my spirit wants is to feel free. And I think magic allows me to live a very free life. And I understand how privileged and fortunate that is. But I think that's, like, the fact that, yes, I can go to bat, go to war for things, with my practice. But I also can go to love and to the impossible and to the magic and the miracles of things that can happen with my practice. Because you can't have, I don't know, there's not much space for miracles in normie society, but in magic, you can have miracles all the time. Yeah.
What is your favorite tool? It doesn't have to be a physical object. It can be like a song or a certain smell you like to wear or whatever. But what's your favorite tool and how do you use it?
Oh, there's, like, just one. I love, it's interesting you said smell, because I do love, like, oils and dressing, like, objects, right? I think smell is so important in teleporting you and transporting you. But I mean, I have to say, the good old standby, I love divination. Any form of divination is, like, I can't get enough of it. You know, it's funny because I can pick up anything and be like, okay, let me divine with this, you know, like cards. I love reading coffee and scrying with different things. I love psychometry, reading objects, like any form of divination. I love, love, love. But it's funny, but like you won't catch me. I don't do palm readings. Although so many people ask me if I do palm readings, or they assume I do. I think I have a past life where I got like killed. I actually know I do, but I got killed because I was like a bad palm reader. But I love every form of divination that allows you to kind of utilize a tool or turn it into something to get information.
No, I wonder if I don't like divination because I don't really like touching things a lot.
You don't like
I know you
touching.
don't have to touch. I know you don't always have to touch
Right.
things to do divination, but
Right.
like I don't like physical things.
No, well, I think the physical things are like, I just love the idea of objects holding energy, you know? So
I think that's why I don't like touching things.
yeah. 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 That's why I don't like people touching me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's funny.
How do you pull yourself out of a magical slump?
I mean, I wish I knew how. I think they're part of the cycles of things. You know, I think you have to, sometimes the slumps are not slumps, they're recharges. You know, I think it's, am I in a slump or am I burnt out?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, so many butts are hurting after that statement.
Sorry. Well, there really is burnout, you know, I think. And then also like, you know, I need to like be inspired. I need to go like take classes. I need to go nourish my own magical life, you know, like it's not just, I think a lot of us who have magical practices are also like in this place of holding a lot of space or giving and giving. And then the thing is, you look back, you're like, oh, there's nothing left to give. Okay, let me give you my kidney. Let me give you this. And then you're like, oh shit, why do I feel terrible? And then are like, why am I burnt out? Why do I feel like hot garbage? Why did that entity attach itself to me? Why? And because it's balance. And also there's seasons. There's seasons to, I think, your practice and how you're feeling. I don't think we're equipped to be on all the time.
I feel like I just hurt my own feelings asking you that question.
I'm sorry. I think here's the other thing too, is like, I think we're so conditioned in like kind of, you know, capitalism and all that stuff. Like you gotta be an Energizer bunny, or our worth is so tied up to our productivity. And if we're not productive, we're like, I'm a worthless piece of shit. And it's not true. It's like, actually, what if, like I've been feeling lately, I've had a hard time, right, with this myself. I am not confused about my purpose, right? I'm not confused about what I'm supposed to be doing, but the outer world in financials and all that stuff and the like lack of commitment or people showing up the way they used to would have me thinking otherwise, right? So to my normie friends who don't understand cycles and things like that, they're like, oh my God, you need to go get another job. You need to get a job. You need to go back to school. You need to get a job. And I've thought about it, right? I think about having another job all the time. But there is also this part of me that's like, I also feel like there's this slingshot that's happening right now where, you know, maybe it's not that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but what I'm supposed to be doing is that I'm in that pullback mode, getting ready to get like let go and go forward. But like I'm sitting here trying to work extra on things that I think I need to be relevant because I need to have my work validated and vindicated by money. Like I know money is important. Paying my bills is important. Of course it's important. It's important for all of us right now because we live in this society. But why is my worth or my magical practice tied into that.
Why are you hurting my feelings right now?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, I've been getting hit with this too, like big time.
Crap.
Like it's been hitting hard, right? My ego's like,
Damn.
no, I don't want to know that. I don't want help. I can do this myself. I can figure it out. I have the solutions. I've gotten myself out of this before. Why do we need to drag ourselves out of some mud hole? For what? For what? Maybe we just need to lay our ass down, let people help us. I'm saying this to you, but I'm saying this to me because I'm the worst offender.
Oh, I'm hearing it.
Like, I don't want help. Are you kidding me? I don't trust your help. What do you mean you're going to help me?
Yes.
What's the catch?
Mm-hmm. Yay, trauma.
Yay. Yeah. And yay, historical trauma. Like, considering that, like, I'm a descendant of people of the first light. Like, okay, person, you're going to help me. Then what are you going to do? You're going to take my home? You're going to give me disease? Here's a blanket. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, wow, really? Should I get on your ship? Like, So
how could that go wrong?
I know, but that's what I'm saying. All that stuff gets activated, right? So think about it. Then it's our job to go, oh shit, I'm the magical person who has to unpack this, because that's also how I'm going to help someone else, is because I'm going to recognize their pain. They're going to recognize that I truly understand them. And that's also part of this, like me growing and going forward. Maybe I'm going through this right now so I can help someone. That was one of the things I learned, not to trail too far off, but like my adopted dad died violently. Like he was killed in an accident, motorcycle accident. And at the time it was like, yes, painful. There were so many things, right? I had no idea in that moment that all my clients, like for the next 2 years, were going to be all people who dealt with this kind of loss. And I'm not trying to put like a positive spin or tie a bow on something that was tragic or hurtful or painful, but like all of these moments that we're in right now, especially when you live a magical life, is because you are a beacon and you're going to be rippling that out to the people in your community or the people that you're helping. And you might just not be seeing it yet.
That's so good.
I hope
That's
so.
such a good descriptor.
It's a wild ride we're on, right?
Yes. God. What is something you wish was discussed more in the witch community?
Ooh. I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
I understand.
Oh my God.
I know there are lots to choose from.
Good, gosh, I'm like literally there's like thought bubbles, like multiple thought bubbles popping up. I guess I want to say being published or being consistently featured doesn't mean that your witchcraft is more valid than someone whose isn't.
Absolutely agree.
As someone who self-published for 9 years and is currently published, it doesn't mean shit, honestly. Because also, who inspires your favorite witch? Like, who is your favorite witch inspired by, I would say?
Oh.
Because
I used that question on here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Because it's true. It's like, who actually, like, you'll have your favorite witch, right? And you think they're amazing and all that stuff. And maybe they are to a degree, but they have better PR or they have a better social presence or they've got,
oh my God, the PR.
Yeah, it makes a difference. It does. Or maybe they're categorizable and you're not, like, because I have that too. I'm never featured in things. I've been doing this for so freaking long. The amount of people that tell me I inspire them, but yet they don't actually like publicly share that, or they, And am I a little like jaded about that? Yes. But also I've come to the conclusion that but I've come to the conclusion more, as I'm getting older, I'm just like, okay, like that's not my purpose. My purpose isn't to be famous. Like you don't have to be famous to be valid. Most and there's nothing wrong with that either. I always tell people, do you want to be a witch or do you want to be famous? Because it's the same thing with people who want to be rock stars. Do you want to be a musician or do you want to be famous? And it's okay to want to be famous. Like legit, some people, that's their job. That's what they came here to do. They came here to be pinnacles, to be seen, be lighthouses, What's that?
That's weird to think about.
It is weird, but it is some people's purpose just to be famous, right? But I think that there are some people that assume that like if you are a witch and you're famous, like you're top of the game or you're top of, like understanding. They're for some people.
I'm guilty of aiming that at myself in the imposter syndrome way, where I'm thinking, I have taught a class now, but it's partly because I'm trying to beat my own imposter syndrome. But you haven't taught anybody a class. You haven't written anything. Nobody really knows who you are.
Mm-hmm.
All of this means that what you're doing is not real and you are a fake poser. You should just go to your room and go to sleep and not wake up and just stop everything you're doing.
Don't you think, though, that is just probably the social media public eye pressure? Like it hasn't, yes. if this was 20 years ago, like you wouldn't have given a shit.
Correct. Because social media and the internet has made life really weird.
It is weird. It's also
grow up with it.
It's also paid. It's also pay to play now. Like it used to be fun. Yeah. Like I will say, I have a pretty large following, but like my following is organic, right? And it was also, I started doing Instagram when it kind of came out. Like originally, my first account was like 2011, and I was posting card spreads and like weird like altar pictures and like little things, almost like a Tumblr, but on Instagram. And I gained a lot of followers. And then I had like an upsurge. I think when my first deck came out, like that really connected me to a lot of people. So my first deck I published, self-published 2013, it came out. So between 2013 and 2015, I blew up. Right. But that's because it was still like, I was like, feral kind of like training ground. Like it wasn't curated. Like it wasn't bought by Meta yet, like, it was still organic. It was still Wild West feeling like, and I think now because all those things are bought by big corporations and you have to pay to play, like you have to pay to have your stuff seen. You have to do this, you have to do that. Like it's just like a different beast, and you can't rely on that to validate your work. Like even I had to like really, really, I've been suffering with that, being like, my work isn't being seen. People are asking me to do things. Everything is transactional, blah, 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 blah. And being really hurt and heartbroken by it, but then really having to come to the grips of like, it's not the same field anymore. It's not the same rules. Like what I loved about it before was there was no rules. So you can't rely on that to validate your work.
Rationally, I understand that. It's just the little quiet voice telling me, you're a jerk, shut up. That I have to talk to and say, no, you, because here are all these reasons that you're wrong.
Right. I get it because there's this part of us it's a real deep wound. It's also like a big gamble to put yourself out there. So, to be vulnerable, because there are a lot of people, and there's also more trolls now. I feel like everyone's a hater. Most people are haters.
Well, you couldn't do it before the internet because you'd get punched in the face.
Oh, I know. I would do little pop-up readings, like at my friends would sell vintage and stuff, like at the Hollywood Farmers Market or like at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And I would like set up my little sandwich board sign. Now, this wasn't that long ago. this is like 2009, 2010, 2011, right? Even up until 2012. And I would get like, who do you think you are? Only God can judge me, or like hate.
Who's judging
just like
you,
hate.
homie?
Yeah, but it was like, now you can't like turn and not find a tarot reader, like it's like, yeah, it's just different now. It's just different now. So I also just tell people like, use your discernment. But if this is for you, it's not, what's that phrase? Like if it's something's for you, it won't pass you. Feel that way about your work and your purpose. Like if it's meant for you to do it, you're going to keep doing it. Why? Because it brings you joy. Why? Because your spirit and your heart need it, right? You're going to do it. That's why I always say, like, I'm going to be around when I'm going to be doing this. Even if other people move on from it because they found something easier, a quicker get rich quick scheme to bypass their emotional healing and growth, but get all the things they want. I'm still going to be here doing this. So,
yeah.
And I think you will too. Like, I think it's just, and that's how like, you're like, you know what? Maybe just also ask that you be supported or call in. That's the other thing. I have to keep reminding myself, call in the actual, like the places that you're wanted, not needed.
That's so sweet. Oh my gosh. Yes. Holy moly.
I mean, that's why I ended up here. I was praying. I was like, I need to be where I'm wanted, not where I'm needed. Because I kept finding myself in places where it was so painful to exist.
I was thrilled when I found out you moved here.
Yeah?
Yes, because I've been following you since like 2000, I don't know, 17, 18.
Oh my God. Thank you. Because I'm always like, nobody knows who I am. I don't care. Like, but also I do care.
When I saw that Nexus was running a class with you, and then I was like, wait, what's happening?
Well, I ended up there by accident in November. I came out here in November. And I was just so miserable in Long Beach. And I was like, I haven't done like a mini tour type thing since 2019. So I had shared on Instagram, like, is there anyone, like anywhere I should pop up in the Southwest? Because I always usually go to Santa Fe. And I had a friend she lives here. She's from here. And she was like, you silly goose, come visit me. I've been trying to get you to visit me for 2 years. So I was like, all right, I'll go visit you. And then we figured out like another friend of mine who used to live in LA, but like born and raised in Tucson, moved back during the pandemic. I had no idea. And then was like, oh my God, come here. I have a shop. And her shop is Savior. It's down in the, what is it called? Oh my God. MSA Annex down by Mercado. Anyway, it's a vintage shop. And she was like, come do do you want to do a meditation? Do you want to do a class? Turned out I had a bunch of clients here.
That's cool.
I was like, what? What do you mean I have clients there? And then I come in and like the first night that I'm here, my friend's like, oh my God, I'm getting advertisements for this occult bookstore and oddity shop. And I really want to go in, but I'm too nervous to go by myself. Will you come with me? And I was like, yeah, let's go, And it was kind of a wild time. It felt like for the first time, I felt like the light in my eyes turned on again. Because that morning she was like, let's go get piercings. And I was like, yeah. Like I never do, like I was not doing anything that made me feel alive. So we did that. And then we go to Nexus and we're looking around and we're like kids in a candy shop, like, oh, look at this, look at this. And everyone was so nice and welcoming. And then I pulled down the tarot Taschen book and was showing my friend like, yeah, look, they even have the book. And then we went around and we were looking around some more. And then before we left, as we're walking around the corner, Andrew, the owner of Nexus, comes over with the book and says, hey, would you sign this? And I was like, what? You want me to sign it? Like, it was very sweet, but I was also like confused because I'm like, how did, whatever. So I signed it. And then, he had said like, hey, like if you're ever in the area and you want to, maybe teach, we have the school, the classroom. And I was like, okay, that's very sweet. And I left. I was like, I wonder if I should live here. And then like within 24 hours, I was like, I think I'm going to move here. Like my friend was, after being confused about where to be for years, because I was going to move back to Providence, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was looking at places in Rhode Island.
Holy crap.
And then my friend was like, why don't you just move here? I'm going to like move into my house, like rent my house. I'm leaving. I need to rent my house. So why don't you? And I was like, well, why don't I rent it? It was like this weird back and forth. So then within a few months, I was like, I'm getting rid of my whole life and I'm moving. And then Andrew messaged me and said, hey, I saw you're moving. Do you want to get on the schedule for a class?
Cool.
So that's how it like all kind of, it just was very organic and naturally unfolded. And it's been a huge pivot because I've been doing everything online, but also in LA, it's very industry, Here, I find that people are really interested in learning. They're really interested in the like grounded, like it feels more grounded here. It's like, it's less about consumption or collecting people like Pokemon. Cause I mean, no shade, LA, but someone will be triggered, but it's like people like to collect psychics or witches, like we're Pokemon cards. It's really upsetting.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. Anyway, that was my long-winded version of how I got here.
So I want you to think of the 3 biggest influences on your practice. That doesn't have to be people. It can be animals or a book or maybe a song, whatever, a place.
Mm-hmm. Thank
each of those influences for what they do for you and how they've affected you.
Wow. Yeah. I would say first and foremost, I do want to thank ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, the Black Land, as a huge bloodline through my practice, through my traditions, through my guides and guardians that I work with, that have always been with me, the lifetimes that I've spent there, and also the bloodlines of mine that come from there. In that, into leading into I want to thank my ancestors, the lineages, the many lineages that I come from, that I feel like conspired to bring me here to do the work to help this lineage and life be acknowledged and healed. And I'm like, it's a toss up between my familiar Lord, the bearded dragon, and her wild connection to the animal kingdom that I have been able to heal through by learning. Because I actually do want to thank, I was going to say ETs. I do love extraterrestrials, but Lord really taught me how to love. And I really say that honestly. It's not just like trying to be cutesy. Like, I was really shut down before 2020, and then she came home with me in January of 2020. And through the shutdown, I had to learn how to care for another living thing, and also learn a different language, learn how to connect. And I've always connected to animals, but I've been very cut off from getting close to anyone or anything. I think she really I am so grateful for my non-human relationship with her because I think I don't think I could have even made it this long without having that kind of connection open me up or teach me how to love, because I couldn't. I was so frozen out of protection that I couldn't really meet anyone in a space of love fully.
I'm so glad you mentioned Lord. I was hoping you would. I was hoping that would be one of them. Yay.
Yay. So I would say, Kemet, ancient Egypt, my ancestors, and Lord.
Do you have any advice for a new practitioner?
Stay curious. When you make what you perceive as mistakes, stay curious when you feel afraid. Stay curious even when you're doing really big things and well, or things are really you have achievements or successes. Stay curious to all of it. I think that's the only thing that can keep us going, is staying curious.
Now that you've seen what it's like to talk to me and seen what my questions are like, who do you think would be interesting for me to have on the show?
As a witch or just in general?
Either way, both.
I'm there's probably a few people. My first thought was my friend Jennifer Carmody. She's JK Ultra on Instagram and TikTok. She's definitely something else. Also, Madison Young. She's open. She runs Open Eye Crystals in Los Angeles. Also, my friends Mark and Martin. They're I call them my fairy goth father witches. They're in Los Angeles as well. But yeah, I just feel like those are a few people that are doing their purpose in magic. Even if Jen's work isn't magic specific, there's a lot of magic in what she does.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sorry, that was not one. That was 3 or 4, actually.
I'm going to be reaching out to these people, so that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to bring up? Anything you wanted to ask me? Anything that I didn't ask? Anything that is happening? Are you going to be teaching anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of things coming up. I am teaching on October 6th at Nexus. I believe it's the 6th. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I'm doing a past life healing meditation. And that is, October 6th, Sunday at Nexus. I'm also going to be offering a new service. I haven't told people I do Acu Detox services, which is a 5-point needle protocol for the ear. It helps with detoxification. It helps you coming off of substance, but also it's really good for maintaining relief with anxiety and stress and insomnia. So I'm going to be offering that at Nexus in person on Thursdays, starting in October by appointment. And I have my book that I mentioned earlier, Healing the Liminal, and that is going to be coming out February 11th. It is up for pre-order now. And all of these things you can find out about through my social media or going to marcellakroll.com. It will bring you all the links of the things that I have available. I also have a psychic self-defense self-published book that I put out recently that is basically the psychic self-defense class that I teach, but in book form. If you want to get that, that is available through Amazon. And I'm trying to think of anything else I've got going on. I don't know. You can find all my books and offerings and decks. I have 4 decks now. All of that you can find online through my website. So thank you.
Cool. Yay.
Yeah.
So the next two things, the last two things, thing number one is please recommend something to the listeners. It doesn't have to be witch related, just whatever you're into this week that you're like, hey, whoever, you should try this new sandwich I got at Subway, whatever.
Oh, okay. I need to think on that.
I mean, if it is witchy, cool. But if it's not, that's also cool.
Like something that, well, I didn't finish asking you. I want to ask you,
Oh, yeah,
what
yeah.
do you have going on? So yeah, what do you have coming up going on?
I am actually going to be vending at the Witches Bazaar here in Tucson, and it is at 1674 South Research, Loop Suite 430. It's on October 12th from noon to 6. I'll have a bunch of witchy stuff and some jewelry and like altar tools.
Nice.
So everybody should come check us out.
I was going to say, just as a sidebar too, I forgot to mention that on October 5th, I am going to be at my friend. There's my friend Adina runs Guided Flame Spa. And when we were talking about, things that I'm kind of like into right now, I'm really into trying to connect with all walks of community. And she's a great sound healer, facilitator, and she does facials and stuff like that. But she is opening, having her grand opening on October 5th. And there's going to be vendors there, local vendors like food and drink, but also a DJ. And I'm going to be there doing Get Your Shit Together Oracle readings, which is a new service that I'm offering.
That sounds like something I should do.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. It's just like, it's a silly thing, but it's also like very just to the point and direct, So it's like, how like doing public readings can be a lot if you're not focused. I don't know. That's going to be fun. So it's a grand opening celebration on October 5th from 3 to 6. There's going to be raffles and giveaways. It's at 236 South Scott Avenue, downtown. There's kind of by the Owls Club. It's in that same building. It's actually pretty cool. It's like an old morgue, the building. And then there's a whole outdoor area. So I'm going to be set up outdoors doing Get Your Shit Together Oracle readings. There's going to be like free gift bags for like the first, I think, 50 people. And there'll be different vendors. I know like Beads Over Diamonds is going to be there, which I think is pretty cool. There'll be food and vintage and things like that. It's just going to be a nice celebration of Guided Flame Spa, which is Adina's, skincare and energy work space.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for her and for this. Mm-hmm. So, and then the other thing I just forgot, I don't know when this is going to air, but I am doing a 2-day workshop at Cosme Astrology down in the Mikado district for healing the liminal. And that is October 12th and 13th. It's going to be a small group. Right now there's 5 people. I'm going to extend it out to 10. So there's 5 more spaces. If anyone is interested in that, I'm going to be teaching directly from the book, Healing the Liminal, that's coming out. It's 2 days, 11 to 4 each day, and it's $500 for both days, which I know for some folks right now, that could be a little bit financially tight, but it's a lot of work included, and I'm going to offer AcuDetox to everyone who participates if they want it. And yeah, anyway, I don't know. If you feel called, let me know.
Nice. I always think that I get better results when I work with the person in person and not just the book. So
yeah. Well, I want to show people too, like how to like utilize the book in practice, not just like, oh, I'm going to read this. And then like the book is filled with stories, with parables of I channeled my ancestors and wrote short stories, and they all have a lesson in them. And then throughout the book, I like, especially in the beginning part, there's like a chapter on how to set up an altar for them. There's also like tools and exercises that I used to connect with them. Because like I said earlier, I really felt like it was the ancestor work that I was doing that I started coming up with creative ways to connect with them, even though I didn't have their names, their pictures or whatever. I offer those in the book as ways to connect to them, especially if you don't have the direct line to them. So I wanted to show people like, this isn't just like a book of yes, there's a lot more personal stories than like I've ever shared ever. Right. So there's definitely that, but there's also a lot of, there's kind of like a supernatural bend to a lot of the stories. So I wanted to be like a fun, creative, engaged, workshop experience where we're learning how to rewrite our own narratives, but we're also learning storytelling and we're doing healing. So there's also going to be sound healing as well.
I love that.
Thanks. I'm excited. I hope more people sign up.
Really cool.
But we'll see. I think I also have to just trust that the right people will be there. Yes. Yeah. If anyone, is interested in finding out more information about any of the classes I'm doing, I always tell people, email me info@marcellakroll.com. It's a quicker response because I try not to do work via DM, but so if you want a quicker response, email me.
And I'll have links to Marcella's website down in the info box in the show notes. The last thing I ask of my guests is please tell me a story. It doesn't have to be witch related. It can be just whatever, just a story that you enjoy telling.
Oh boy.
It doesn't even have to be a story about your life. It can just be a story you heard once that you like.
Let me think. Okay, I'll tell you. I have a story. I'll tell you the story of Lord. I love how we met our family. Okay. So I was really kind of in this autistic brain wormhole of wanting to kind of connect with a familiar. I have never had a pet. My family, like they had a dog or whatever, but like, it wasn't my dog. I never connected. Right. Also, like growing up, my mother and my grandmother were really like anti-reptiles and things like that. But I was like, I'm really interested, but I kind of pushed it off. Also, I just didn't feel responsible enough. And then, I started to get really like invested in learning more about bearded dragons and snakes, to the point where I ended up going to first I went to a reptile convention and I went to a reptile convention in Pomona and I met this couple who were from Oceanside and they had all these bearded dragons and I was having a full on anxiety overwhelm attack. And the husband was like, hey, do you want to come over here? So it was really cool. I went to the side. He let me come over and just let myself settle in and just let me ask him a bunch of questions. So about husbandry and care. And then it was really sweet. Him and his wife were just like, no one ever asks these kinds of things. So it's really good that you're getting prepped because a lot of people will just show up to these conventions and just grab an animal with no responsibility, not a proper setup, nothing, just take it home and then dump them or bad things happen. Right. So as a token or a thank you for I was spending time with them. They were talking to me. They gave me this whole care sheet. They gave me all this advice. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a perfect nest for a dragon. Right. And, I did. I spent 6 months researching, learning all this stuff. And then there was I tried to find one a rescue. There weren't any I could find. And then I was there was another reptile exhibition coming up in Anaheim. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down and I'm going to see those people again. And maybe I'll find one. Right. Also was really interesting. I don't know if this is part of the story or not. I mean, it is, but it's not. It is actually. I was in New Orleans. I think it was 2 weeks prior to this reptile convention. And I had an IFA reading. And in the reading, the my friend's Ia, who is her spiritual mother, was like, you have Eshu, like, is your best friend. Now, if anyone knows who Eshu is like the crossroads, the guardian, like you talk to Eshu. And she was like, and I asked her, I'm like, is it okay for me to get a familiar? And she said, yeah, actually, if you're thinking about a familiar for Eshu, who's your best friend right now, you might want to consider getting a reptile. I was like, okay. We did a bunch of offerings. We did to the different beings and like my ancestors and that lineage and all this stuff. And what happened is like all the roads opened. If you know Eshu, all the roads open. I get to the airport and they offer me $500 gift card if I will give up my seat, but I only have to wait an hour to get on the next flight. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Right. So lo and behold, I'm holding on to this card, right? And I go to this reptile convention and I got the approval. I got the spiritual approval to get a reptile. I right away walk in and I see the couple that helped me before. And we were like, oh my gosh, hi, nice to see you. And it was crazy. It was nuts. Like, it was so busy. People were being handsy. And also, I didn't tell you, like, I had met Lord's mother. Like, at the last one, I met her mom. Yeah, it was like a beautiful zero leatherback. So if you know about Vader Dragon, zeros are the ones that are all white looking. Leatherback just means they're really smooth. And I got there and there was this one that like came up to me. It was super cute. But the guy, he was, open your hands. And he drops Lord into my hand by her tail, right? At the time, they were like, oh, they said Lord was a boy, right? So and Lord just looked at me. And in the chaos, all the other dragons are like freaking out, running around like they're trying to get away. Lord just looked up at me and stayed there. And I was like, okay, you're coming home with me. And they were like, okay, well, that one's $300 and you need some other like stuff. And I had that gift card. So I was able to get her and the thing she needed. And that was like, to me, like a confirmation, like, okay, like you can do this. They need to come home with you. And Lord and I, like, it was one of those things where I didn't know that her name was Lord then. I just kept looking at her on the car ride and I was like, what? I was like, is your name Lionel? Is your name Larry? Is your name this? And I said, is your name Lord? And like, she whipped her head at me and looked at me. And I was like, an aunt, like, yeah, that's my name. Then that night I had a dream. I was in a cave with a bunch of giant frill dragons and they were like her ancestors. And they were telepathically telling me that during the winter, they get really still and they don't move. And it's part of them reserving their energy. Now, I had no idea that they went into brumation or anything, but literally her ancestors met me in the dream that night. And her and I have had this telepathic relationship ever since. And the reason why I'm bringing up this story is because she's such a powerful manifester and we manifest a lot together. And how I know this is because there's also this element of her. I will keep getting these reoccurring ideas that are not mine and I know they're hers. One of them too is I was feeling like she needs a bigger tank. She needs a bigger tank. And when I was looking up the tanks, there was like a specific one, but it was, I don't know, it was over $300. I was like, I didn't have the money for that. And I say, I will get you a bigger tank, but I don't know when I'm going to do it. This is like, this is a lot of money. Would you know, the next day, one of my clients calls me and it says, hey, I have a weird request. Can you do a pencil portrait of my daughter? Here, and said the exact amount. She's like, I can pay you like $330, whatever. It was like exact. It was like the amount of the thing.
I freaking love witchcraft. It's
I know.
so weird.
And I just looked at her and I was like, Lord. So I was able to do, but the thing is, it was like not a hard task. Like it was super easy for me to do this portrait. It wasn't like she wanted a painting. She wanted a sketch. And I was like, oh, I can do that. And it was the exact amount that this tank that she wanted. So it's like whenever we meet like these expansions and all these things, like literally it's like my familiar and her, like we have this like wild connection of like things happening together, you know? So anyway, it was kind of like a roundabout story, but you get my drift.
I love that. I love that.
I just think it's so funny that like, you know, that these guides, these deities, these beings, you know, like she is deeply intrinsically connected to my ancestors. She's deeply intrinsically connected to my guides, my guardians. And she is my, like, I would call her little Eshu, my little Eshu. Like she has multiple nicknames, but because she is the road opener and so is Eshu. And she is caring for her is me caring for my, you know, connection to him. So
that's so good.
It feels good, you know. So, yay. Thanks for letting me share that story.
Thank you for sharing it. Yeah. I love that.
Yay.
Well, thank you again so much for being on the show and for sharing stories.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Everybody be sure to go down below and click in show notes. Go to Marcella's page, pre-order that book. Come to her classes.
Yeah.
And I will see you on Instagram. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Marcella.
Hi.
Welcome to Hive House. It's not this beautiful closet, but... Okay, so...
Yeah.
Say when.
Oh. When?
Are you an optimist, a pessimist, or a realist, and why?
I'm a better optimist.
Ooh.
Why Spock?
Yay!
Yes.
Like, role model.
Yes. Spock is definitely... who else? Oh my God.
To hear more of the members-only episode, head over to crepuscularconjuration.com. The monthly magic tier will give you access to the monthly Magic Marco Polo group, the private Facebook group, and access to the written monthly spells. There's also Crepuscular Conjurations, giving you bonus podcast episodes, coloring pages, guided meditations, spellcrafting videos, printable downloads, and a lot more. The free Witchy Wonderment level will give you a little sample of everything I just mentioned. You can also visit my shop, Clever Kim's Curios, to get spell boxes one at a time or by monthly subscription, intentional handcrafted jewelry that I make especially for witches, and handmade altar tools. You can even listen to the full Your Average Witch podcast library, including show notes and transcripts. Check it out at crepuscularconjuration.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Your Average Witch. You can find us all around the internet on Instagram at Your Average Witch Podcast, facebook.com/groups/hivehouse, at www.youraveragewitch.com, and at your favorite podcast service. If you'd like to recommend someone for the podcast, like to be on it yourself, or if you'd like to advertise on the podcast, send an email to youraveragewitchpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next Tuesday.